I would like to say that I do not believe that we will have peace on earth until we have healed birth.
Welcome to today's conversation with inspirational teacher, gifted breathwork therapist, healer, author and philosopher, Binnie Dansby. I first came across Binnie at the Breathe Festival of Life a few years ago. I took one of her source breath workshops, which did actually change my life, as many of you already know. And just a little bit about Binnie's source process. It's really a personal development system, but it's a practice as well as a philosophy. And this practice is essentially healing the limiting first decisions that we make while we're in the womb, during our first breath, and also the crucial first moments that we have after birth. And these decisions become subconscious beliefs that create the basis for our negative patterns. There's also one final component of Binnie's work that really makes sense to me as a writer and as a coach for creative dreamers. And that is how our early experiences impact the creative process. So Binnie is a singer, and she also worked as a designer before she started her conscious birthing program in the 80s. And she's come to realize that what she came here to do was understand the creative process. And I really relate to that. Binnie, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd really love to start with the idea of slowing down, because that was where I was when I first discovered your work. It had been about 8 months or so, and I'd been getting this deep desire to either slow down or to stop. And yet the idea of listening to that desire was utterly terrifying for me. And within the first 5 to 10 minutes of your workshop, I was like, oh, I understand why this is so terrifying. And literally the roof just flew off my head, and I really understood, and therefore was able to start making that journey towards slowing down and even stopping. So could you explain, because I know there's going to be people in my audience who are also feeling that impulse, and I don't know if you're noticing this too, but it seems to really be spreading throughout the world, this real conflict, the desire to want to slow down, and yet the terror of slowing down. Right. So what the heck is going on?
It's fascinating because it's, well, number one, most women during labor are encouraged to get on with it, you know, and babies are, I mean, the things that happen just at birth, the cutting of the cord too soon, leaving a third of the baby's blood inside in the placenta rather than being in the body, shaking the baby to get it to take a breath when air on the skin causes us to take a breath when we're ready to take a breath. If you slow down the whole birthing process, just those moments when once the body is born, it would make a huge difference to everyone. We will be able to relax. There is this energy of push, push, push that we all feel. And mothers, when they're pregnant, are in that energy, whatever they happen to be doing. You know, it's like and the desire to slow down is genuine, and the fear of slowing down is, I'll get separated. So we expect to be separated from the one we love, our bodies, the thing that we fear the most, death. Well, birth and death are identical. It's coming from one way of being to another way of being. We come from being water mammals onto land, and we're rushed through that process. And it's astonishing. I was just with a 10-week-old baby, and his mother and I were just wondering, he had been feeding, and then, he was kind of asleep. And then at one point he opened his eyes, and I said, every time that newborn opens its eyes, it's new.
Mm-hmm.
And we rush. Now, right this minute, I personally think, and I just was writing this morning about, I think that the new frequencies that are coming in onto the planet right now are very intense. And we're going into, I think, what can be a magnificent year. There's a lot of light is coming in. But when a lot of light comes in, it shows what's been in the dark.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that we slow down to allow for those things that need to come to the surface, and those new energies that we truly want, allow them to integrate. If you keep rushing, the thing you learned yesterday is not going to have time to integrate.
I love this. What's dropping in for me, Binnie, is this word unknown. Like when you first started and were saying the mother is sort of rushed to get on, and then the umbilical cord is cut too soon, and then the breath is forced out of us. And I'm sort of thinking, okay, what were we learning at that point? It's more like, what were we not learning, which is like who we are. So it's almost like the truth of who we are has remained an unknown.
Exactly.
And it's almost like that's asking for us to slow down so we can know it, but we're running from it because we're afraid of it.
Thank you. That's very wise, a very wise understanding. Joseph Chilton Pierce, in a talk many years ago that we were having a discussion about water birth, actually. But he said, and he wrote about it, that the best matrix for learning, is to move from the known to the unknown and be able to refer back to the known. What we do with our babies most often is they move from the known to the unknown, and they do not get to refer back to the known. They are taken over, and no matter how long it takes, oh, my baby was just away from me for a few moments. Your baby lived inside your body. It doesn't need to leave that body.
Yeah. This is also making me think of the phrase, I think I read it on your website, the state of being safe, supported, accepted, heard, connected, and trustworthy must be born into you. So that's also making me think of this known and this unknown. Like if we don't ever get to have that experience, safety and trust isn't known to us. So we're kind of wanting something, but we don't know what it is.
Exactly, because it's quite safe and supportive in the womb. And then we, hit the wide world. So I do not believe, as a therapist, as a human, that anyone totally reveals themselves to themselves or anyone else until they are certain that they are safe and supported.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, that lies at that bottom of that desire to slow down. And it was very much my own experience. Like, I sensed a deeper truth wanting to come through to me. And that is what's been coming through to me since I experienced your work. I remember when I first heard the phrase in your workshop, and I just had tears just coming down my eyes when you talked about giving birth to the one who intended to be here in the first place. And I was like, that is what I've been looking for. Like, this lady has articulated this sense that the version of me that is the true version of me didn't even get born.
Thank you.
Talk a little bit about that. Like, what, for someone who's hearing that for the first time and they're like, I feel that, what does that mean, giving birth to the one who intended to be here in the first place?
Well, I know that we remember our births. I know that we remember who we are. I know in my heart of hearts that at the core of being, that desire to be here was a soul desire. So that's the kernel. That's there. And in the craziness, I mean, the insanity of high-tech birth, everybody forgets. No one, it's like I've been advocating for more than 40 years for fathers or mothers to catch their baby. That you don't need outside influences, and that when you come from inside to outside, you need to be on that body. And breathing, you need to be acknowledged as one who loves. Thank you for loving me. We hold our babies as objects that we have to take care of, that we're responsible for. And yes, that's true in one sense, but you're giving birth to a grand cosmic being who has a true purpose here. And if the parents acknowledge that, it's easy for the baby to remember.
And of course, if they're acknowledging something wildly different, that really aids that forgetting process. I'm thinking of my own experience, and I've uncovered this projection on me, this projection of concern and fear for my well-being. I was born very premature and I was an incubator baby. Oh. And so I've really discovered those implicit memories of being so painfully alone and wanting something that I haven't yet had, which is that physical touch. So that confusion of wanting something, but I don't know what it is, and not being able to get it and having to kind of settle to getting it totally for myself.
Your territory.
But of course, if we've got parents, mothers, fathers projecting, I could really do with not having this child, this is going to be really difficult for me, or I'm concerned for this child's welfare. No wonder that becomes that baseline belief that we have of ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
This also seems to relate to feelings. Like, I would say in the journey that I've gone on since taking that first workshop of yours, it's been very much based on one of the principles you teach, which is my body is safe even though I may be feeling afraid. And that second part of the affirmation to me is so important, because I think we can say the first part and we often just get taught, my body is safe. But of course, if it doesn't feel safe, we're like, I don't believe this. So I love that even if I'm feeling afraid, my body is safe. And it seems that our work at the moment is this great undoing of this erroneous relationship that we have with our feelings. And I love that you make this distinction between feelings and thoughts. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that for the people who are watching, who are like, but I have feelings that I don't like and I don't want them and I want to ignore them. How can knowing the difference between thoughts and feelings really help us in that journey?
Well, I make the distinction, and I use the word feeling in that affirmation because it's so widely used for, body sensation. The truth is, a feeling is sensation with a thought attached to it. I feel sad. What does sad feel like to you? What is the sensation in your body? Where do you feel sad? Oh, how do you know that you're sad? Because the truth is, we have a choice, not about the sensations. Sensations come along with having a body. That's energy registering in the physiology. But my definition of that sensation that I say I feel may have been established when I was born or when I was 2. So I feel sad. Well, where do you feel it in your body? What's the sensation? Well, it's like my heart feels like it's opening and closing. I mean, this is the way I feel when I'm really, really sad. And for me personally, the sensation is that there's this big heartbeat going on, And I used to think of it as my heart is closing. The truth is, sadness is how much you love. Feel literally aware of the boundaries of your loving and the edges of it, and it just, to me. So I have a choice about what to think about all of the sensations in my body. I have a choice about what to think about the weather, the circumstances in my life. And when I make that choice, then that's the way I will experience it. So a thought plus sensation, or a thought plus energy, creates results. So thought with the sensations, the energy registering in the body, is the way I will then experience it. Now, when I first started on this journey with Leonard, he was talking about thought is creative. We hear thought is creative often. But what is creative? Creative is a concept. You give it energy. You must give it energy. And then you have a result. Whether it's a painting or a baby, it all works the same.
I feel that if we're in a relationship with our feelings where we're currently choosing not to feel because that feels like the easiest option, then of course that's going to lead to very it's going to lead to creative stagnation, because we don't have that flow, that receiving of the impulse.
Lead to dis-ease and discomfort, because the body, the energies must keep moving. That's why I appreciate breath work so very much. It keeps the energies moving. And I had a wonderful, I had a communication from one of my students. Well, actually, she's one of my teachers now, one of the teachers in my training. And she was telling me about a client who works with birth on a regular basis, right? And she's now come to working with this particular woman, this practitioner. And after her first session, she was relaxing at home just before bed, and all of a sudden her body started tingling, and she went back into a session, and she breathed with it, and then her period started. So it was working at such a deep cellular level, because this woman has been working with birth. She's been doing depth work already. We really, truly are blessed, and we if we're cut off, if we're slowing down our process, we need to do that.
When I think about how I began to make my way back to allowing my feelings, like I was very much aware in the time after taking your first workshop that my strategy had been to just hold the body in enough tension so that it wasn't exhausting me, although it kind of was, but enough to numb it. And what happened when I tried to relax, I used to take yoga classes, and I used to hear that instruction, relax. And I would think, if I knew how to do that, don't you think I would? Like it just, that sort of ease of just, oh, relax. It wasn't available to me. And I remember having so much frustration, because on one level, I wanted to relax and feel, but I then had to respect that what had happened to my body was such that it needed time. It needed time to soften and relax and let all those sensations come through. I was so impatient.
Yeah. Because, healing, it's not always pretty either. If you want it, I feel really, really wonderful. It sometimes feels on the way out the way it felt on the way in. It's just so important to know that who you are is not your body. I think that comes along also with birth. It's such a very powerful sensory experience, and we overload the senses, which is another reason to slow down, because most modern births are an overload of the senses. Okay, and it's just like too much.
Yeah.
And the body is a sensor. The body, number one, is something that we wanted. The soul wanted to have this body. The one wanted it in order to appreciate itself in all these forms. Now, if I'm walking around thinking I am a body, if you drop a brick on your toe or you hit your thumb when you're nailing a nail into the wall, for a moment you are thumb. A moment you are toe. Well, most births create or facilitate a human being thinking I'm a body. And that's what you just described. It's like, no, I am not my body. My body is my primary relationship. It's a holy marriage, you and your body. It's my job to take care of her. I dress her up and I take her out. I enjoy it. I get great joy from my body. I didn't always.
Yeah, because listening to you saying that, again, it made me realize how, I mean, I use this analogy when I'm talking to people about the way that they treat themselves, which is you wouldn't take your car to the gas station and put anything other than unleaded petrol in it, but what are you putting in your body? And again, I think a lot of that relationship that we have with our body, that sort of like, oh, I can't be bothered, or that self-hatred or that disgust, that it sounds like, again, it's really coming from those formative experiences. It's been such a beautiful journey for me to really start to acknowledge how well I'm treating myself.
Yes.
And to be really proud of that. But it isn't easy, as you say.
Yeah. We take it too personally.
What does the it refer to when you say we take it? You mean the body?
The body, yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, if I'm thinking this is who I am, right? Then if I think that I'm a worthless shit, then I'm going to treat my body really badly. If I think I'm not safe and, no one is safe with me, then I'm much more likely to strike out.
Yeah.
If I've got these two things are one, my consciousness, my who I am, and body, then it reflects then what I think about myself. Now, it does. It simply does. I mean, somebody they may take their car in and put only unleaded in, but they're, abusing the body. They don't know that they're safe. They don't know that they have a choice. They don't know that at the core of being that they are innocent. Not unculpable, but essence of being, purity and light.
For me, I think that's why breathwork was so life-changing for me, because it showed me something that I could, put into myself that was the right fuel. Because I think in my teens, in my 20s, when I felt so uncomfortable in my body and I didn't have the right tools, I didn't have the right awareness, it's so easy at that age to reach for alcohol, to reach for drugs and be like, oh, what a relief this is. So we can feel guilty for what we're putting in without the understanding that at that time, it's a very effective solution in the absence of having a better solution or a more aligned solution.
Compassion for yourself is probably the most important foundation. Having true compassion, passion with life energy with yourself. Give yourself a hug, for heaven's sakes. You've done it just exactly the way you needed to do it, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Just like, I say to people, I deeply believe that every birth is perfect. Well, how can you say that when, this horrible thing happened? I think birth is a setup. I think we choose our parents for exactly what we need to work out. The circumstances, all of that. And it's like life is, well, fundamentally, I think we come here to love and to serve. So love is the essence. Service is the action. And when we get to that place, when we are doing that, we awaken to deeper and deeper awareness of our connection with the divine. And, why did you come? Well, I came to awaken. I came to wake up, for heaven's sakes, But what did you come to wake up to? That I am love and that I am a part of the divine. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't get that when they were pulling me out with forceps and my mother wasn't present, It's like, I thought, oh my God, I have truly done something dreadful and I'm going to have to be careful because I didn't know whether I caused her all that pain or she caused me all that pain. Anyway, I had this huge conflict around innocence and guilt.
Yeah.
So I think that's the pathway you have to go through to get to everything else. One of my students, my goodness, years and years, 30, 40 years ago, when I first came to England, it was a beautiful, beautiful woman named Jane, who in the middle of everything said, innocence is the doorway you have to go through to get to everything else. And I said, give her a diploma. She got it. It's like,
I love that. Yeah.
it's the heart. The heart is where we shut down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's where the little lungs blasted open. And we pull in. We shut down the heart.
Yeah.
And life is about opening that up. And I've seen so many people completely transform by opening this part of the body,
For me, it was about feeling safe to love. That's something I've really become aware of over the last couple of years. This idea that if I show just deep, unconditional love to somebody, which is such a pleasure to do.
Yes.
That they're not going to be like, ew, gross, like that was the kind of rejection that had come to me. I imagine that as this tiny ball of love as a child, I would have expressed that and it would have been received with revulsion, or the pain of it not being received was it's too much for me.
Well, I deeply believe, Gabriella, that is the thing that's missing for most people. And the thing that we want the most is not to have somebody love us, but to have our love received. I came here to love. And it's mind-boggling. It's like I'm on a mission to have everyone greet their baby with "Thank you for loving me so much."
Yeah.
It's that awareness that there is a conscious, aware being coming through you. I mean, I did an interview many, many, many years ago called "Birthing the Beloved," and I deeply believe that God is coming forth, and it's like waiting for the Christ. Give me a breath. Christ consciousness is coming through your body right now if you're pregnant, It's like it's developing, Treat it like that.
And of course, that signals to the wounds of the mother or the one that is carrying this consciousness, because I think it's so easy when we express that love to someone and they reject it. We assume there's something wrong with us rather than being like, oh, I see they can't receive my love.
Thank you.
And I think that's been such a huge shift for me, like now, and it comes even at the level of compliment. You say to someone, my God, your hair looks fabulous. Oh no, I mean, I haven't washed it for days. And even there is like that kind of contracted rejection. Yeah. So it feels like now, if we truly commit to loving, it's like keeping our heart open and showing compassion to that person who, right now, I can't receive your love, but I just don't realize it.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is to compliment people walking down the street, or when I see something that I like, I tell them, and for the most part, I get really beautiful responses because I don't do it just to do it. I really mean it when I do it. And sometimes, it's just,
This seems to me to be related to the creative process, which I wanted to dive in about, Binnie, because it seems to me that this sort of foundational truth is that we're here to love. Like in that impulse is this idea to want to express and to have it received. So whether we're expressing love or a performance or a piece of art or a piece of writing. And I know that your the conscious birthing program that you started in the 80s, I love that it had around 2/3 pregnant women and 1/3, writers, artists, actors.
I loved that.
Yeah. So I want to dive in, like really specifically now to the creative process, because I think there's something that you said, which is mysteries about our relationship with creativity and with relationship ourself are solved when we begin to explore our own birth stories. So tell us a little bit more about what you mean there.
Well, one aspect is just simply even the labor process. And what I learned from my own body and life, I was working as a designer at the time. I was head of design for this children's wear company, and I had done a line. I was almost, and this was when I was very first breathing. We were breathing with a snorkel and nose clips in the water. And it was a big experiment, right? Anyway, I had a showing for the salespeople coming up, and there was one garment that I could not complete. I don't even remember what it was, but there were parts of this particular garment that just were not happening. And it was one of the lead pieces. And so it was a little fleece bag. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful piece, and I couldn't get all the things to come together. And I put my children to bed one evening, and the nanny was there, and I left and went to my friend Mally's to breathe. And I walked up West End Avenue, and I got there, and I got in the tub with the snorkel and the nose clips, and she sat with me, and I was breathing, and I was aware of my body tension and that my legs were, my inner thighs, my thighs were like locked. And I had the thought, I have to relax my body in order to get this thing to happen. Because my intention, I mean, I breathe with intention, and my intention was to kind of figure out what was going on with that creative project of mine. And I kind of came out of the water and I looked at her and I said, if I relax my legs, I can birth this baby. And she said, oh, that's nice. All right. But I realized that my mother was holding on with everything she could possibly hold on with. She was terrified to give birth to me. And it's one of the things that I drop into deepenings or meditations is, are your inner thighs relaxed? Are yours relaxed right this minute?
I was just checking in, actually.
It's like, it's fascinating, the parts of our bodies where we hold and we don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, my darling, I want you to know that I breathed into relaxing my legs. I breathed into relaxing my body at deeper and deeper levels that night. And by noon the next day, the project had come together. And I realized the relationship, you know, some of you say, oh, you're absolutely crazy. I don't believe that. I mean, I've had example after example after example. You know, transition for me in my process, when I'm creating anything, I know that there will be a period before completion where nothing is happening. Dead in the water. I laid in the birth canal. When my mother went into transition, the energies got so high they over-ethered her. And she was actually not present for my birth. Bottom line. I laid in the birth canal. I mean, everything stopped. Just, and until I went into distress, I suppose, you know, it's like, hello, get me out of here. and I was in the birth canal. I mean, I was fully formed, you know.
Yeah.
So that has happened in my, whether it was in singing, art class, everything, until I began to really realize that.
For me, Binnie, to hear you talk about how our creative process can unconsciously mimic our birth experience, I'm just like, oh, and it makes total sense to me, because I think,
and this also includes pregnancy, but I mean, the birth process itself is like it's reflected in everything.
Yeah. And actually, thank you for adding that it includes pregnancy, because I can see how my creative process has shifted. And I've just had this, I've had this little bit of grit in my oyster as I've sort of grown to really understand the work that I want to do with people and the space that I want to hold. I've had this belief of like, are we creating from our truth or are we creating from our trauma?
Thank you.
And if we create from our trauma, we just relive, don't we? We never get to where that creative process wants to get to. But if we create from our truth, the ending is different. And I can see when I've created from my trauma in the past, I've relived my experience in the womb, which is I'm going to die. I was in my mother's womb and she had a different blood type, so her antibodies were killing me. So I've had this kind of like this thing that I'm creating is going to kill me. and then coming out too soon. So always sending half-baked ideas out into the world, and then being in an incubator, my ideas result in me being completely alone and not accepted and rejected, and nobody.
Exactly. Oh, my darling.
Yeah. So I just knew there was something going on. And when I started to experience your work, I was like, okay, this is helping me make additional sense of this.
Oh, I feel so seen. It makes me so happy.
But weirdly, there's actually an additional component, which is when my mother was pregnant with me, the doctors were saying it's going to be very dangerous for you to have a second child because you've already got the antibodies. But my mother had absolute faith that I was going to be okay. So even though there's this sort of weird creative process, on the flip side is this absolute belief that everything is going to be okay.
Yes, and it is. Look at you. Gorgeous creature. Giving birth to the one who intended to be here.
But I suppose, and this is what I like to let people know, which is it's so terrifying to give birth to the one who intended to be here, but the terror is in no way reflecting on the validity of the one.
Yes, but darling, terror or fear is just fear of the unknown, or an experience that you may have had in the past. It's giving birth to the one who intended to be here in the first place is truly a joy. That's where your joy is. That's where your peace is. That's where your happiness lies. And you know it when you're there,
Yeah. This connects to something I heard you say, which is where you talked about anything in life becomes an art. So whether it's the art of receiving or the art of creating, when it's taken to the level of devotion and love.
Thank you.
So it comes back to that. Is your art coming from trauma, or is it coming from that place of I'm devoted, I'm in love?
True art doesn't come from fear, and it doesn't come from trauma. It comes from the one, true art, no matter what the artist is, that which is recognized by others as truly artful comes from love. I deeply believe that in every cell of my body.
Thank you for that, Binnie, because I feel on such a mission to shift that creative process from pain to love, and to do all I can to figure out how to do that. And I've a bit like the belief that was instilled in me, like, it's all going to be okay. Like, I have this belief of like something can be birthed from joy, from love, from devotion. I just know it's true.
The truth is, in the physical, the more you resist something, the more pain you cause yourself. Pain is resistance to letting go of a negative thought. And this is going to hurt, or making the statement, it's painful. If you truly believe that it's painful to give birth to the one who intended to be here, then that's what you will experience, because you are that masterful. You are that powerful. So I invite you to change your mind. It's the first step.
Yeah.
Thought conceive the possibility that it's a joy to give birth to the authentic self, to the one who the soul's desire. It's a joy and a pleasure. Well, I mean, I can conceive that possibility. Oh, okay. Well, I'll continue to give it some energy. I'll contemplate it. Because you see, I don't think that affirmations are just kind of pretty thoughts.
Mm.
They're points of contemplation. They are truly the painting I'm going to paint, or the book I'm going to write. It's a concept. If I give it energy, if I contemplate it, if I think about it, if I, and I take a look into the world, then I'm beginning to integrate it into me.
Mm.
The cells of all my bodies are opening to receive it. And anything unlike it will come to the surface to go, hello? And I can say, thank you for sharing,
What do you think, Binnie, is the obstacle here? Because, and this goes back to what you said earlier, which is our birth was perfect. The experiences that we've had have been necessary in order so that we can love and serve in the way that we're designed to. And I see myself loving and serving, but also with an understanding of how many obstacles I've overcome to get here. And so it now makes me aware, like, as you were talking about that, and I know that you've talked about ecstatic life and birth and living exactly as you want and creating exactly as you want. But the old me is just saying, but hey, there was a time when you would have heard that and been like, I can't. I don't even know what joy is. Right. That's just not available to me. So if someone's in that place where they're like, I literally can't even imagine easy, I literally can't even imagine joy, like, where's the starting point for someone who, like me, was completely numb, completely afraid, and literally it's almost like their body won't even allow the tiniest amount of embodiment?
Breath work. Take a deep breath. Let the breath love you. Just take sweet sips of the thing that keeps you alive. Nectar. Spirit in form is the breath. Imagine that it's imbuing every cell of your body with joy. Everyone has a beautiful imagination. We are all creative. When people come to me and say, oh, I'm not creative, give me a breath is one of my favorites. Yeah. But I'm serious when I say, take a deep breath.
Yeah, yeah.
And look in the mirror. Every one of us has co-created this magnificent communications device. Now, that's creative. I mean, if you cannot imagine joy, go to a funny film. I mean, it's just like, oh. Remember looking into the eyes of your newborn,
I love that you just brought it back down to the breath. And it reminded me, Binnie, of before I really went on this healing journey, before I discovered breath work, I used to think breath work? Come on. Do we really need to go into a workshop and breathe? And I'm absolutely certain that was sabotage for me. It was the part of me that knew that was going to break me open.
Right.
And so I happened to be on retreats, and suddenly there was a breathwork class, and I would just zone out. I wouldn't really take part, and I would zone out. And after a couple of these, I thought to myself, something's going on here, because you would take a yoga class and complete the class, or you would take a writing class and stay focused. You meditate, so you know that you have the capacity to stay focused. And yet with breath work, you're zoning out. How about the next time you find yourself in a breathwork class, you commit to seeing it through?
Yeah.
And that was when I saw this
Beautiful.
eye of pure love gazing at me. And I was like, message received,
Whoa.
loud and clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was literally the moment that I realized that I had such huge capacity to love, and that's all I really wanted to do. It was so healing.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm glad that you just
That's so beautiful.
Binnie, this has been an absolute joy.
Yes.
To talk deeper with you.
I want to do more with you.
Great. I'm totally up for that. Yeah. For now, let everyone know. I mean, I know that you're sort of in the middle of your source training, because I think it started last year, but let people know, if they're just like, where can I get me some Binnie? How can they experience you? Where's the best way for them to reach out to you and start on your work?
info@binniedansby.com. I answer.
Yes, you do, as you answered me.
And also, I mean, if you sign up for my newsletter, which is not as often as I would like for it to be, the newsletter coming out, there is a gift that many people have said they absolutely love the morning prayer. So you get that. It's a recording it's a set of affirmations that I wrote for an older client many years ago, because I knew that she wouldn't write affirmations or, get into it. So she just said this, what I call prayer, every morning. And so it has nice music behind it. So if you if you subscribe on the website, if you give us your address, you get that. And then you get my newsletter. So
beautiful. And Binnie, is there anything, just kind of taking a moment, is there anything that you feel drawn to share, something that didn't come up today?
I think that I would like to say that I do not believe that we will have peace on earth until we have healed birth. And that pregnant women are the most powerful beings on the planet, wherever they are, whatever they are doing. They are carrying the future. And we must truly care for the pregnant women around us.
I'm just giving you the most squeezy, filled with love hug. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Binnie.
Thank you for inviting me.
It was a pleasure.